Guys, and welcome back for another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this super cute pouch. Now with all my tutorials, I will have a blog post where you can find the measurements, links to materials and tools I use in the description box below. And of course, if you're not already, I would love it if you subscribed and hit that notification bell to be alerted of new and future tutorials. And of course, smash the like button, as the kids like to say. Okay, so let's just get straight into the tutorial. So I'm going to be using cotton and cork today. So if you're using cotton for this pouch, I would definitely recommend using a medium to heavyweight interfacing. And then I'm going to be using cork for my corner detail and then cork for the back. So I will have links to where I got my cork and of course any of the interfacing that I use in that blog post. I'm using a zipper and then a little piece of cork for the loop for the D-ring, and then I think it's like a 1/2 inch D-ring. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is work on the corners of the front of our pouch. So like you saw in the clip before, I did just have a square piece of cork and then I cut that diagonally, and that'll give you 2 equal triangles. We're going to place those on the top of our outer fabric, and we're going to have it right sides together because we're going to sew it on the front of it and then we're going to flip the corners down. So as long as you have everything lined up nicely, making sure that it is 1 inch from the top of your fabric and then centered right in the middle. We also want to have the triangles off the edge a little bit, about 1/4 inch, because that's going to count for our seam allowance. So I'm going to be marking it with a marker. I found it harder, especially because if I am using cork, I'm not going to use pins, and then the clips kind of just make it shift anyways. So I'm just going to use that marker line to make sure that when I'm sewing that piece of corner is lined up with that marking perfectly, and we're going to do that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, then you just flip that corner down, and then we're going to do a top stitch. I usually bump up my machine to a longer stitch length when I do my top stitching, so I'm going to do a 3.5. I've been liking that a little more than the 3, especially for these sort of decorative areas. So I'm doing 3.5 when I flip the piece of cork down, but when I'm installing it first, then I usually do a 2.5. So this is how it should look, and we are going to attach the other piece of cork corner, making sure that it is perfectly lined up. The edge of that triangle is lined up with the line that we drew. And it's okay if you want to use marker so that you can see it, because it won't be visible from the outside once you fold that cork corner down. So after you are done putting on your cork corners, then you are ready to start installing your zipper. So I am using Zipper by the yard. If you've never heard of that before, basically I just buy the zipper tape by the yard, and then I just buy a bunch of poles. So it is quite cheaper going that way. So if you're ever interested in doing something like that, I can try to find some links for shops that do something like this, but I really find that you have a lot of less waste and excess when you're able to just cut off what you need and then add your zipper pole. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my zipper, making sure that it opens towards the right. Just because I like to have, when the bag is closed, I'd like the zipper pull to be at the left side of it. So I'm just going to put it with the zipper pull down on the front of my outer fabric, and then I will line up my lining piece with the right sides together. I did put a heavyweight interfacing onto the back of this. So now I'm going to change my foot out to a zipper foot. And I'm sorry, I can see my camera mount in the camera there. Didn't realize that. But now we're just going to sew along. And it's nice having that zipper foot because it gets nice and close to the zipper teeth without sewing on the zipper teeth. So if you're interested in learning more about the zipper foot, I do have a video which I can link in the information icon for you. It's a very handy tool, especially if you're going to be doing lots of zipper type projects. So once you have that done, then you're going to flip your not sure. It's not a pouch yet, but flip it right sides out, and then you will fold it down, making sure that the fabric is nice and tight coming away from your zipper. And then you're just going to do your top stitch, and again I'm doing a 3.5 for the top stitching and a 2.5 for everything else. So it is going like back and forth. I keep pressing the button on my machine, go back and forth. If you have a dial, then just turn your stitch length dial to a 3, back to a 2, whatever you want to do. So now I'm going to install the last two pieces, which is the cork piece and then the second lining piece, with those right sides together, making sure that the zipper pull is touching your cork fabric or the outer fabric. And then again, we will do a seam along there. So if your zipper pull is in the way, kind of just sew up to it, and then lift your presser foot, push your pull out of the way, and then you can keep going. The one thing about the zipper by the yard though is that there are no zipper stops. You can install zipper stops, but of course I'm not going to for this particular project. But sometimes you accidentally just kind of like whoop, accidentally just take your zipper right off your project. So you gotta be a little careful when it comes to these types of zippers. Okay, so now we're just going to work on the little tab piece. I'm going to be using just a 1-inch piece of cork that I'm folding in half one time. If you want to use cotton, you can use a 2-inch piece and then fold in the raw edges 1/4 inch and then fold again, just so you have no raw edges. And then you're just going to sew down both sides with a top stitch to make it look kind of like a strap. And I really like the white stitching on this brown cork. It's a really nice cork. I got this over at Cork Supply in Canada, but if you check out my Shopify, which I have a new shop by the way, that is down in the description box. I have some other cork products that I get at MB Cork, which is in Portugal. So like I said, I'll have all those links over at the blog post. So now I'm just going to take that, cut it down to about a 1-inch piece, and then I folded that over my little D-ring there, and I'm going to install that right over the corner piece with the raw edges lined up with the raw edges, and then I just did a little base stitch to keep that in place. I find that it's easiest to do it this way because if you go to install that little piece while you're assembling the whole bag, you're more likely to get it to come out crooked once you're done. So just like any regular zipper pouch, now it's time to put all the right sides together. Put the right sides of your lining together and then the right sides of your outer fabrics. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but I did use a Decoville light on the cotton fabric, which I have never used before, and it is wonderful. So if you can get your hands on some of that. So now I'm just going to do a stitch all the way around the whole thing, leaving about a 4-inch gap in the lining. I like to make a bigger gap when I am doing it with this like heavier weight fabric, so the cork, it's just a little bit more difficult getting it through a smaller opening. So make it as big as you feel comfortable. And we're just gonna go right over that zipper and the little tab there, and we're gonna back stitch a couple times just to make sure that that little tab is nice and secure, because it will have some more stress on those seams from being used as a keychain, or if you're gonna put wrist strap on it or attach it to your keys. So yeah, just gonna go all the way around, and as you can see, I did put a couple little marks there so that I can tell myself where to stop. And I also gave it a little bit of a larger seam allowance in the lining area. So let's say if I do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the outer area, then I did a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance in the lining, and that's just going to make your lining sit like a lot nicer on the inside. And now I'm just going to, I snipped all the corners off to make sure that, my corners come out nice and sharp, and then I will flip it right sides out, and then give it a little press if you, depending on your fabric. And yeah, it looks so cute. I love how it turned out. And I'm just gonna take the lining out and then just fold in those raw edges, and then I can just do top stitch or hand stitch that little hole closed. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you do decide to make this, I would love to see it. So follow over on Instagram, Facebook. All those links are in the description box below. And of course, if you want to sell these little guys, go nuts. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye guys.